I've always wanted to know what it took to be fast at Knoxville and why some guys seem to struggle there. So I got in contact with a good family friend by the name of Skip Jackson. Skip, an Australian who calls Knoxville home, is well known throughout all of sprint car racing and has an incredible amount of experience when it comes to racing at Knoxville in particular. At Knoxville alone, Skip has won multiple track championships, has a bunch of Nationals feature starts, and currently sits equal 11th on the all-time win list. Pretty impressive. All of this meant that Skip was the perfect person to ask about the intricacies of Knoxville Raceway, who he thought would be on the podium come Saturday night, and much more. I really hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did talking to the most genuine person I know in all of sprint car racing. So here's my chat with Skip. Skip Jackson, thanks for doing a video chat with me. First up, how have you been and what sort of involvement do you have in the sport these days?
Well, it's good to talk to you, Toby. I'm doing really good. My 3 kids are starting to grow up now. AJ's like 24, Abby's like 19 and already in college, and Andrew's going into, in Australian terms, year 12 at school. So yeah, they're all getting big, they're all doing great, and everything's going pretty good. And I kind of help out at Knoxville a little bit, kind of in the Australian word scrutineering, but not doing too much, just sort of helping.
How did you get involved in that? Because I know you kind of stepped away from the sport a little bit, and then all of a sudden I've seen pictures of you with a official shirt on.
Well, not so much stepped away. I've always enjoyed going there to see my friends. And
yeah,
actually, one of my really good friends, my Prophet, he helped me out 30 years ago when I first started coming here. He had some knee surgery, so he said, "Can you come and help me out for a couple of weeks?" I said, "Sure." So I couldn't really say no to that. Basically, it's a, come back next week.
Fair enough. So I wanted to talk about your experience at Knoxville and get a bit of an insight in, with the Nationals this week. You live just a couple of streets away from Knoxville. You've won multiple track championships there. You've got 25 or 20 something wins there at Knoxville. But you've had a fair bit of success, but not everyone has success when they first go to Knoxville. What is it about Knoxville in particular that is so unique?
The biggest thing is it's got short straights and big, long flowing corners, which is a bit of a contrast to everything else that you do around the world, whether it's Williams Grove, who's got long straights and tight corners, like a lot of Pennsylvania tracks, Port Royal.
Yeah.
Then you go to California, and they're all little short tracks.
Yeah.
Where you got to pick the car up and carry it and throw it around.
Yeah, sure.
And then you got most of the tracks in the Midwest, like Eldora's a half mile, but it's actually a small half mile.
Yeah.
And you got little tracks around Indiana, like Lawrenceburg or Bloomington or Paragon and all their places. They're just little places. So some of the bigger tracks, there are not as many of them anymore. And Knoxville is extremely unique in just the way you drive it, the things you do to your car to get set up for it. It's just a unique individual.
Sure. So if I'm from Pennsylvania and I'm used to racing weekly at Williams Grove or Port Royal, what sort of car changes am I making to go race at Knoxville, or what sort of driving style changes should I make to be fast at Knoxville?
Actually, in 2000, I raced in Pennsylvania for the year. And I just come off several very good years at racing at Knoxville. And it was definitely different going to Williams Grove for the first time because of what the car does in them long straightaways is really traumatic. And it took me a while to get used to that.
Yeah.
And Port Royal, not so much. But then come August, when I came back to Knoxville, I was so used to racing them tracks that it took me 2 or 3 laps of hot laps to say, there we go. Yeah. So it wasn't something the setup changes, it's just the way you drive the car around the racetrack.
Okay.
Got to be a lot more straighter. So far as you're not turning the steering wheel very much, you got to be very just about pinpoint accurate where you point the car to make sure you're in the right spot on the racetrack, and also just you got to make sure that your corner speed stays up so you don't waste all the power that you have.
I notice a lot of guys, it takes a fair while for them to get the bottom right, which is so important at Knoxville, what is so tricky about running the bottom at Knoxville? We saw the other day with the Capitani Classic that a lot of guys, even guys like Donny Schatz, who's had a lot of success there at Knoxville, seem to be getting caught up on the berm on the infield. What's the secret to running the bottom? I know that you know how to run the bottom, so give us an insight to Knoxville's bottom.
The biggest secret to success is you got to be. It's a contradiction because you got to charge it in there, but at the same time you got to be patient.
Yeah,
it's quite a contradiction because you need the speed to go in there hard to make the wing work, but it's just such a fine line between getting it and nailing it, and so you roll around the corner real good, or if you miss it a little, hanging out in the middle of the racetrack in no man's land, it feels like you're going nowhere because the tires have got no grip and you're spinning.
Yeah,
and you feel absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And because there's such a fine line to get into that groove, sometimes you cheat a little bit too much and run up on the infield curve.
Yeah.
And this year, for what reason, it's a little bit steeper than what it has been in past years, so it makes it a little bit more. How do you say? Makes it more easy to get the car thrown out into the middle of the racetrack more. So you've got to be very careful. And Donny Schatz, generally speaking, is very good. But last night, Brabble done a great job out. And actually, the three local guys that ended up finishing 6th, 7th, and 8th, Brown Henderson and Davey Heskin, they went real good. Davey rarely gets off the bottom, and Justin and Brian are very good around there too. So hopefully they can have a good weekend this week too.
Yeah, you said like you got to be just about pinpoint accurate with driving the car in on the bottom. Do you think that guys? You said that you got to use the wing speed as is normal in a sprint car. Try and maximize the wing speed. So carry a lot of wing speed into the corner. And do you think that maybe guys are trying, like you said, are a bit impatient, get back on the throttle and come out of that dark clay, and that's when they spin the wheels? Is that sort of something that costs them?
It's a combination. Unfortunately, I can probably say I've missed it just as much as anybody while trying to learn it, how to learn it good. Yeah. So everything goes through the growing pains of missing it. But one of the things I've found, you have to use a lot of brake. It's a combination of brake and throttle. And it's not so much one or the other, but it's the timing of both. Yeah. The way you go on the brake and off. You don't really, it's not so much off the throttle, but you've got to be carefully. Yeah. It's in a funny way, it's like racing a go-kart on a road course. Yeah, sure. Where you can use both feet as much as you can and try to use as little steering wheel as you can to make sure that you keep the car under you at all times, because the last thing you want to do is get the car too much on the left wheel where the right rear spins out, or you get up in the infield berm. Sometimes it can help you, but the last thing you do is get sideways in the middle of the racetrack. So you've got to make sure you keep your speed up, but you don't want to be too cautious because then you throw your speed away again. So it's definitely a fine balancing act, and most of it comes from just pure confidence. I noticed one guy who's had a lot of success there is Brad Sweet, winning the 2018 Nationals, and you see his rear brake glowing all the time. So he's definitely riding the brake. One thing I wanted to ask though is, I noticed with Knoxville, like if I'm trying to explain someone sprint car racing and, you really just want to keep your rear tires in the dark clay and, that's where the grip is. Yep. And at Knoxville, you'll watch a guy, he's hammering the top, or the other guy's, running the bottom, and you think, yeah, that's where they got to be. Then all of a sudden someone will, slide through the middle or cheat at coming off and go through the middle. And I'm like, you know what? Don't listen to me. I have no idea what I'm talking about. What is it about Knoxville? It feels like, is it a momentum thing? Whatever feels good at the time. Can you explain that? Yeah. I really can't explain it, but one thing I can explain, about 20 years ago, Mark Kinzel was absolutely phenomenal at running the middle of the racetrack. He is the best I've ever seen do it. Driving in turn one up on the fence and come off turn two on the very bottom, and he nailed that like nobody else could. Yeah. A couple of times this year, I've seen it where all of a sudden a guy that bounds the middle of a racetrack where a little bit of dirt's got kicked up in the middle of it, has all of a sudden found a lot of speed. So as the racetrack changes, you got to be willing to adapt and have a very, very open mind of where you can and can't go. And sometimes, for whatever reason, if you can keep your speed up to the middle of the racetrack, if there's a car on the top and a car on the bottom, you can capitalize.
I know you've had a few good runs at the Nationals. You've made the feature, which is an incredible feat with all the toughest cars in the country are there. Let's go through a qualifying night, the Wednesday and Thursday of the Nationals. Where's your mindset at? I know like there must be a lot of pressure laying down 2 good laps in qualifying.
One thing I do not miss is a heat race at the Knoxville Nationals. Qualifying is ultra important, obviously, and to draw a good number is always a bonus. Okay, because that way you can get if you draw a good number, generally speaking, gives you the confidence to know that you've got to put in a good lap.
Yep.
Okay, and if you draw a bad number, you kind of get a little bit downhearted. But the flip side of that, I've seen plenty of good drivers that got out last in qualifying and run in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the end of the world, but qualifying, especially on Thursday night, an early number seems to be of greater importance than Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But once again, if your car is good and you're confident, it really doesn't matter a whole much. But what really makes a difference is a heat race.
Yeah.
The heat race is the most nerve-wracking race you could ever go in, because if you qualify bad, you got to be near the front, which means that you've got to transfer to make the. And if you qualify good, you've got to make it to the front to make sure you can capitalize on your good qualifying. And because the guys at the front are just as hungry as the guys at the back, and everybody's got their best stuff, you are so determined and so focused and so worried. You've got every different emotion that's coming through you to make sure that the heat race is good. And if you can get in that top 4, you've done a phenomenal job, because if you qualify good, you got through your heat race, it means you've got a pretty solid car, which means it should be doing pretty good in the main event.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if you qualify bad and you get through the heat race, then you got a lot of work to do, because chances are you're going to be down the back of the A. So then you got more work to do to try and get some more points. So then if you start in front of the heat race, you don't transfer, it's a pretty down night in the pit. Yeah.
It sounds like you've got it all sussed out.
But no, unfortunately, I've been in every different scenario over the years. So.
Yeah, watching it, you just can't help but feel that there's only those few guys right at the front that are only sort of comfortable, but even then they know it's not going to be given to them. Let's talk about the Nationals finale on the Saturday night, because it's unique for a couple of reasons. The first one being that this year's feature, the 60th annual Knoxville Nationals, pays $1,000 to lead just one lap, and it's 50 laps. So what I want to know is, do you think we'll see guys race a bit differently in the feature? I know sprint car racing, generally you kind of don't hold back. This isn't, Formula One and you sit behind a guy and use your strategy so much. It's usually the car's good, I need to go for it. What do you think guys will do, knowing that there's $1,000 on the line just to lead a lap? Because it's a fair bit.
It's a fair bit, and you want to lead the Knoxville Nationals. If you can lead from start to finish, guarantee you will.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, there was a big race at Liverpool Speedway called the Marlboro Grand National, and in the late mid-70s, I think it was, a guy called Paul Ash. He won it. It was $10,000 to win.
Yeah.
Then the next year, they made it $100 a lap. But the same guy goes out and leads all 100 laps, so he's still got his same 10 grand. So 2 years in a row, he went out with 10 grand, completely different ways about going about doing it. So
yeah, but
it's not going to make a bit of difference, because this is Nationals. It's a sprint car race, and the guy's got in the pole because he's good. He's going to want to lead all 50 laps.
Secondly, I want to talk about since 2010, the Nationals has had a stoppage in the middle of the feature race. Just give fans an insight to what sort of changes drivers and teams wanting to make during the fuel stoppage.
Okay, I was in that 2010 race, and unfortunately I never made it to halfway because of ignition problems.
Sure.
But basically, you keep an eye on the racetrack, and that night, the racetrack, by the time the A main started, was a lot heavier than what it was in, say, a normal weekly Saturday night race.
Yeah.
So I was kind of set up what I would normally be for a heat race, with expecting at the fuel stop to change the car to the changes I would generally make for a main event. So
sure.
Just slightly different wheel offset, because you can change tires, you can do whatever you want. And I had a different wheel offset, anticipate the track to wear out a little bit. So I should be as good in the second half of the race as what I would be in the first half.
Yeah. And I noticed that one guy who's just commonly, it seems that every fuel stoppage for the Nationals, Shots changes gears. Can you explain why Shots changes gears during the Nationals feature?
Not really. That'd be something that him and his crew chief have decided that they want to do. And I think probably the biggest thing is, as the track widens out, it actually slows down a little bit. They just want to keep the motor in the perfect RPM range.
Yeah.
What they want with their motor and their motor builder, and what they kind of estimated they're going to be. Shots is one that, if he hasn't won it in the last 20 years, he's been awfully close. So
maybe Shots just changes gears and really just puts the same setback in. Who knows? But he's definitely, like you said, whatever he does, he has a lot of success. So last question is, who are the top 3 drivers that you expect to see on the podium come Saturday night's finale? I know there's a heap, but can you pick 3 guys?
Pick 3. Kerry Madsen.
Yeah.
He's been very, very fast this year. Carson Macedo, very, very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Donnie hasn't quite been as good as what he has been, but this is Nationals. He's quite likely to turn back up and do whatever it takes, because he has a special place. And the other one is Giovanni Scalzi.
Yeah,
he's been very, very good here lately.
So you didn't mention the last 2 winners, Sweet and Gravel, and also some of the locals.
Oh, definitely Sweet and Gravel are going to be there, and Schuhart as well.
This is a big podium you've got.
I know. Don't forget Larson either. He won every sprint car race there was last year.
Yeah, exactly.
And he wants to win this one too. He's racing tonight at Aussie. There's a bit of a tune-up. So who knows what he can do. So he's phenomenal. Yes, I do have a very big podium.
Yeah.
And out of all the local guys, I hope Davey Heskin can stick his nose in the podium too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I tell you what, after watching the Capitani Classic, guys like Henderson, Brown,
he's good.
You know, Brown with Lasowski as crew chief now has looked incredibly fast. He broke the track record there a couple months ago, and man, he just looks incredibly fast. I got to be honest, I don't think you can pick it this year, but I really appreciate you chatting, man, and hopefully it's a good 4 days of racing.
I'm sure it will be. The last week went off really good and really smooth. So I say a prayer to make sure the next 4 days goes off really good, and I'm looking forward to it. So it should be great. And whoever wins, it doesn't matter who it is, guaranteed they totally deserve it, because it's a really tough deal.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Sprint Car Hub YouTube channel. You can also find Sprint Car Hub on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching.